Hello and welcome back to OwnGuard Solutions and our mini-series on tourniquets. Whether you've been tracking along or not to this point, I highly recommend you go back and watch our other videos in the mini-series if you haven't yet. We've covered a basic overview of tourniquets and their use, along with several examples of some of the tourniquets that you may find on the market or you will find on the market today. We've talked about the significance of some of the colors of tourniquets and why knowing the difference between them can be very important. And we've also talked about staging tourniquets, things like how many you should have on hand, where you should keep them. And we've also talked about the application of a tourniquet at a very high level. And so today what I wanted to do in this video, what I wanted to do in the mini-series is walk you through each of the 3 approved tourniquets. They've been approved by the Department of Defense, and I've said this before, specifically the Committee on Tactical Combat Casualty Care. That's a mouthful. I said that before too. But I wanted to show you each of the 3 tourniquets today in this particular video. Again, they're approved for a reason. They've been researched. They've been proven in the field more than one time. And so, you know, again, your first aid, trauma bag, basic trauma, blowout bag, boo-boo kit, whatever you want to call it, you want to consider having quality gear. For sure. And I think all 3 of these tourniquets represent quality gear, which is one of the reasons, besides the fact they've been proven to work effectively, one of the reasons why these guys have been approved in the first place. As a bonus, I want to take this opportunity as well to mention a few pieces of gear that you should consider in your kit that are very appropriate. It's good timing in the context of talking about tourniquets. As you can see, I have my gloves on again for this video in the series, so that's first. Whether it's first aid or basic trauma and dealing with severe bleeding like we've been focused on in this mini-series, you want to get yourself some good gloves. If you're allergic to latex, there's always nitrile. I'm not promoting this brand of gloves. It's just the box that I have of them, which I'm having today. This is one of my trauma kits, my basic trauma kits that I keep on hand here in the house actually. I actually talked about this kit specifically in a previous video where I opened up one of my basic trauma kits to show you what I keep in them. I recommend you going back and watching that video as well if you haven't seen it yet. The other 2 pieces of gear that you should absolutely have on hand in addition to gloves is a permanent marker, a permanent pen. This is so you can effectively write the date on a tourniquet, or not the date, but the time you applied the tourniquet on those tourniquets. So it's important to have that. And then the other thing, I'll put it back later, then the other thing to have, and again, I'm not going to promote any particular brand, you get what you pay for. You can find some cheap shears, but I think you should consider, I know you should consider keeping a pair of shears in your blowout bag, your trauma bag, because you're likely going to need or want to remove clothing, and it's probably not, unless it's an ideal condition, which we can never bank on, especially in trauma scenarios, it's probably not going to be very convenient or very easy to undress someone in the field. Hence where shears come in. If you need to find the bleeding when you're doing that B part of the ABCs of bleeding and you're doing your assessment and you just can't find it, especially when thick, heavy-duty wintertime clothing's on, shears are your friends to get that clothing out of the way so you can find what you're needing to tend to and get it done right. So I wanted to throw that in as a bonus. Again, go back and watch that previous video to kind of give you a bigger picture of what I keep in my trauma kits and what you should consider keeping in yours or your first aid kit if you want to keep it all in the same, however you want to do that. So stick around. I'm going to walk you through each of these 3 tourniquets coming up. Okay, we're back. As you probably can tell, I have cut off my moneymaker for this video just to kind of try to put some more emphasis on my poor left arm, which we're going to continue applying tourniquets to. I probably did everyone a favor, so not a big deal. And we don't have a fancy studio, as you probably have noticed over time, and I don't have a videographer helping me record these videos. So hopefully my head being cut off doesn't upset you too much. So the first tourniquet I want to cover, again, we're going to be covering the 3 DoD approved windlass tourniquets, specifically approved by the Committee on Tactical Combat Casualty Care, or TCCC if you prefer. And you know, with the approval has been a lot of research and experimentation and work in the field to prove that they're all deserving of the approval and probably will not fail you, safe to say. So the first one that I'm holding up here is the North American Rescue CAT Gen 7. They are now up to Gen 7 with their tourniquet, the CAT tourniquet. CAT stands for Combat Application Tourniquet. Pretty straightforward. They have at least 1 patent on this, maybe others, don't know them all. But again, it's driven by the windlass. It comes out of the package, the band comes threaded through the buckle out of the package. If you go back and watch our video on staging tourniquets, you know, you may decide to keep yours out of the buckle or not. Just know that if you need it to be in there, if it's out, you'll need to thread it under stress. One of the things that sets them apart, or at least they call it out, is their red tip on the end of their band. And I would also say the roundedness, and you wouldn't think that'd make a big deal, but the roundedness at least makes threading it through the buckle a lot easier than if that thing was cut off square. But the idea behind the red tip on their band is so that it just helps, at least the claim is, it helps people orient the band correctly, which probably is right. You know what you're threading through the buckle. And then someone once told me that it helps you remember to pull it towards your midline, your heart, your trunk, you know, again, referencing back to the trunk. So up until this video, I've probably only heard it mentioned 1 other time. So take that for what it will, but something that apparently they call out. The other thing that they do have or have had a patent on is, unlike some of the other tourniquets on the market, is that the windlass actually, as you twist it, draws up a strap that is inside of the band. So I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if the light will shine through enough, but this narrower band feeds through, or narrow strap feeds through the band itself. And the idea being, as they claim, is that as they turn that internal strap, if you will, by the windlass, it actually helps with circumferential pressure, and it's patented. So it's pretty cool. And again, I recommend, I'm not saying that this is your choice or should be your go-to tourniquet should you choose to get them and get some training and include them in your basic trauma kits. I'm just saying, for me, this is my go-to. It's exclusively what I've carried in my various basic trauma bags to this point. Not saying that I'm not open to exploring some of the other approved items. I certainly am. But for me, and you'll have to make this choice for yourself too, for me, this is my go-to because it is the one I've seen and held the most. It is the one I have trained with extensively. I've put it on a lot of people. I've taken it off a lot of people, including myself, as you just saw a little while ago. That's why this is still my go-to. But again, I'm not saying this is the best. I'm not saying this is the right one for you. I'm saying that's why I chose it for me and why it has been, at least to now, kind of my go-to. But it comes in the buckle. Again, go back and watch our staging video if you haven't yet. Some good tips and pointers there. But I'm going to slide it over the limb if it is in the loop. If it's out of the loop, I'm going to thread it under the limb and then find the buckle and feed it through. Again, it doesn't matter if it's going over clothing. Hopefully the camera's picking this up. Much like I showed you in the last video, not a lot here is going to change. First of all, I'm kind of unofficially, especially if I'm putting it on another person, I want to make sure that the band is flat, which is why threading it through the buckle is pretty important, because I do want the strap, the band to be, I don't want it kinked up or twisted. So that's first. And then again, the first step is pulling that band tightly. And then I'm taking the hook and latch, or hook and loop, sorry, around and getting it out of the way. And then I'm going to twist the tourniquet. I'm not going to go too far. I'm going to put the windlass into the windlass clip. And then lastly, so that's part 2, is twisting the windlass. And then part 3 is getting the windlass into the windlass clip. And then technically part 4 is taking the windlass clip strap and bringing it over. However, one thing that I didn't point out in the last video when we talked about just general application of tourniquet, this particular tourniquet recommends that before you put the strap across, you actually bring the remainder of the band through here, through the clip too, so that there's a way to hold, another way of holding the windlass in place. Now, am I going to tell you that that's absolutely required of any tourniquet? No, but there's some merit. You could even argue that it helps keep the strap tidy, but the reasoning is to be one more way to hold the windlass in place. You got it in the clip, that's the first. Pulling the strap over is 2. It's kind of messy getting in there, but you get the idea. And then I'm going to bring over the clip strap, which also helps hold in the windlass. But at this point, and technically the fourth most important step of getting a tourniquet on, is remembering to write the time on there. And for the CAT tourniquet, it goes right here on that windlass clip strap. So that is a basic overview of how to get the North American Rescue NAR CAT tourniquet applied. And so give us just a second. We'll be back to show you the SAM XT. Okay, we're back again. This time I want to talk to you and show you the SAM Medical SAM XT. XT is to help you remember that this is an extremity tourniquet, so it is the SAM XT. And it has some pretty cool features about it that are a bit different than the North American CAT tourniquet that we just looked at. First off, in no particular order, is it has, unlike the CAT has a plastic or polymer windlass. The SAM XT has an aluminum. I guess the argument could be made that aluminum might be tougher overall than polymer, but I think the polymers have still proven to be effective. With that being said, the SAM does have some cool things about it that I want to show you now. So just the big ones, get them out of the way first. And I think another difference is that, it's been out of the wrapper for a minute now, but I'm pretty sure, unlike the CAT, this one does not come threaded through the buckle. It is already outside the buckle, ready to go in that way. So that's just something to keep in mind there too. But a couple of the big things that are unique to the SAM XT is, first of all, their true flex plate. And the idea is that helps keep force when you're twisting the windlass. That keeps force focused on the band itself to create that circumferential pressure that you're needing for the tourniquet to be effective. And that just keeps the band itself from bounding up and twisting up as you're twisting the windlass. So that's first and foremost. And then the most unique, in my opinion at least, the most unique feature is what they call their true force buckle, which is definitely different. Sorry if I can get it in view here for you. Is definitely different than the combat application tourniquet or any other tourniquet for that matter. And we're going to see that as I demonstrate this on my poor left arm again here. And then last but not least, and you'll see this come together, it will make more sense when I show you how it works with the True Force buckle. But you'll notice that the band here, at least I hope you can, has holes side by side evenly across the entire length of the band of the strap. And you'll see why that's important and how that works here in a minute with the True Force buckle, which I think is safe to say the coolest thing about this tourniquet. And then unlike the CAT, again, is it does have the rounded off band end, which makes it easier for threading through its buckle. But the other thing is that this is not red, it's gray, but the same principle applies. Some people are visual, sometimes myself included, but it will help with the band orientation as you thread it through the buckle. So I'm going to put this on. Again, it came not threaded through the buckle, so I'm going to put it on my arm, or try to as best I can. And this is why you want to consider staging your tourniquets differently, because you never know where injuries are. So, you know, if my arm is completely injured or I'm missing my hand, helping myself out right now like this is not going to be of much good to me. So this is just a good example of why staging your tourniquets, or considering the staging of your tourniquets being different, is important, and only you can decide that. But once you get it threaded through, again, the steps, the important steps to get a tourniquet applied properly are the same. We want to make sure the band is not kinked up or twisted, it's lying flat. I've got it threaded through the buckle, hopefully properly, I do in this case, and then I'm pulling this band taut. And again, I want to let my patient know that this is not going to be pleasant, but we need to get the bleeding stopped right, part of that empathy we talked about previously. And I'm pulling it. And what's different about this, and I'm going to try to twist this around so you can see a little bit better maybe. What's different is these two holes here have a purpose, in that as I'm cinching them down through the True Force buckle, there's going to be two tabs. There they are. I had to get it at the right angle. Two tabs, and hopefully you saw that. Two tabs are going to magically pop out of this True Force buckle into one set of these double holes along the length of this band. The idea is that when you hear that click like that in the True Force buckle with this band, you know you've gotten that band tight enough that now you can start twisting that windlass. And you can bring this back like we did the other one if you like. Get it out of the way. If the windlass is in the clip, you get it out, and then you're going to start twisting. That's the second important step, right? First, tightening down the band, twisting the windlass, getting it into the windlass clip, or the windlass hook as some call it, and then, you know, bringing your strap through, tying it down to help hold the windlass into place, and then bringing your third important step, bringing your clip strap, if I get my windlass clip strap across, and just like the CAT, you're going to document the time that the tourniquet went on here. So that is the SAM XT in a nutshell. I really want to get this off my arm right now. And how I do that is this little tab right here, hopefully my thumb right there, I'm going to push up on that. And that's going to, hopefully, if I've done it right, which clearly I haven't yet, hopefully if I've done it right, that will disengage those teeth. You hear that? My left arm was panicking a little bit there for a second. But you push upwards on that tab to release that teeth. Now, that's something that we haven't talked about. I'll just mention it here briefly, talking about how to release this. We're releasing this template because this tourniquet template, what did I say? This TQ acronym, TQ for tourniquet. We're releasing this tourniquet because obviously it's a trainer and we're practicing on ourselves or someone else. So I need to know how to quickly and easily get back out of it. This one is different. It's not just a matter of undoing hook and loop. I said it correctly this time, but I have to know to push up on that tab to get those two prongs, those two teeth to retract back into the true force and out of that so I can get it off of myself. So that is the SOF-T. Definitely something that I would consider, but I just, you know, outside of a few classes, I haven't had as much experience again with this as I have the CAT. So definitely worth checking out though, for sure. And approved, so you know it's solid. Stick around and we'll review the TacMed Medical SOF-T next. All right, we're back. Thanks for your patience as we get through these 3 windlass approved tourniquets reviewed today with you. And thanks for watching and letting me share this, all this information across this mini series with you. I appreciate that. And hopefully you've got something from it. And most importantly, hopefully you've been inspired to get some training, whether from NAR CAT Solutions or an entity more close or convenient for you and your time and schedule. So the last in the lineup out of the 3 approved tourniquets currently is the TacMed Solutions SOF-T, SOF-T. I think, and I need to look this up, but I haven't, so bear with me. I think that's Special Operations Force Tourniquet. Either way, it's the TacMed Medical SOF-T. And compared to the other 2, compared to the North American Rescue CAT or the SAM Medical SOF-T, this one's really unique in quite a few ways, and I'm going to try to show those to you now. So just in no particular order, the first thing to note is it, like the SAM, it too has a aluminum windlass, which again, some could argue that it might be stronger in some cases, including putting torque on an object. But again, that is one difference, metal. It has, you know, similar, all these windlass-driven tourniquets, as I call them, are similar in that they have a windlass, they have a band, and they have a clip, and they have some way to write the time, some designated space to put time. That's the similarities between them. But this one's unique a few different ways. Again, aluminum windlass. The other thing that it has is, and I want to show you this now because once I apply it to myself, you may not see it anymore, but you see this kind of triangular bunch of stitching threads here, stitching. That is actually called their slack indicator wedge. I guess the triangle is kind of like a wedge, right? And the idea being, I should show you on this side of the windlass, the idea being is when I first apply the tourniquet and I'm taking up the slack, it disappears behind the plate, if you will, which in this case is nylon or something similar, but it will disappear inside of where it passes through the base plate, if you will. And that is what is supposed to indicate to you that you've taken up enough slack out of the band, now you can go to the windlass. So that's kind of unique for sure. And in this type of situation might be very helpful, again, if you're visual. But the goal is, and the first important point to getting on any tourniquet is to take up, make sure this band is flat and even all the way around the extremity, and then take up all the slack that you can before you go to the windlass. So that's unique. And I just want to make sure I get this right. So this is the windlass clip, just like the others have similar. Again, some may call it the hook. But in this particular case, it's trademarked for them. It's the TRAC, which is the Tourniquet Retention Assistance Clip. So fancy way of saying windlass clip, but nonetheless, theirs and apparently trademarked, which is cool. It's a little narrower than some of the others, but that's okay because they also have what they call their tri-ring lock. The idea, and you'll see this when I apply it to my poor left arm here in a minute. Once you get the windlass into the track, into the clip, you're going to flip this up and over the end, and so it's kind of like a double layer of protection of holding that windlass in place once you get it wound up tight, because unlike the others, there's no hook and loop associated with this belt. In fact, the closest thing that I can tell you that this belt resembles, at least to me, is a seat belt. Not quite as thick, probably, well, I know not as wide either. This is 1.5 inches, which is, you know, in the range of being ideal for most tourniquets. Certainly these, they're all within, you know, close to that, but it's a little thinner, a little narrower than a seat belt. But if you want to get a visual without holding one of these in your hands, that's the closest thing it's like. And then lastly, which is super cool as well, is unlike the others, you don't necessarily have to worry about either keeping it in the loop or keeping one out of the loop, depending on how you want to stage your tourniquets. This one has a buckle. And unlike the other buckles that we've seen on the other tourniquets, this one simply comes undone. And so, you know, if you want to slip it over your own arm, keeping it buckled might be best. If you're trying to get it under your own leg or someone else's, separating it out and staging it this way, separated, might be the best way. But that buckle and the ability to undo it just in a split second is super cool. So I'm going to go to applying this. And again, the principle of use of all these are the same. So the first thing I'm doing, again, I can't depend on having this hand. So, you know, take that into consideration. But in this case, I'm using it to help myself. And I want to make sure that the band is untwisted, not kinked up behind my arm or otherwise. And I'm drawing this down. So as you can see, this one could be viewed a little tricky to put on for yourself, which is something important to think. And I'm not saying I've got this one figured out. It's all pretty straightforward. However, understanding there are some nuances between applying a tourniquet to the arm or to the leg are definitely present, and something to consider, you may have to do this to yourself and you may not have a limb. So all of these things come in play, and I'll plug training one more time here and then I won't mention it again, probably. But that's why you want to get training, and get training with the tourniquets that you think you want to use, if you can, where you can. So I'm cinching this down. My indication wedge is disappearing. I don't know if you can see that from where the camera is, but good enough. That's my indication now that I've done that important first step, and there's no place for me to stick this right now. So I'm just going to let it dangle down. I'm going to start twisting up the windlass, and then I'm going to put it in my clip, and then I'm bringing up the tri-ring lock, sorry, over the end. And then, you know, I could likely bring this around somehow, maybe loop it under, you know. Again, am I worried about this if it's just me? No. Before I tuck that in, one thing I do want to point out is, unlike both of the other tourniquets, the place where you write the time that the tourniquet is applied is down here on the end of the seat belt, if you will, on the end of the band. So just something to note. You're going to take your permanent pen or marker and write it down there. So that is one of the other key differences with this one. Reverse is, I'm just taking the tri-lock off, popping it out of the clip, unwinding it. In this case, it's simple to loosen up. So with that, I'm going to remain faceless for the end of this. I want to thank you yet again for taking time out of your schedule, your personal life. There's so many other things to be listening to be watching, information to be gleaned. I think this is obviously, I think this is a super important topic. I won't mention training again. But I want to thank you for your time and watching this. If you haven't watched the other few videos in this mini series, I recommend you go back and doing that so you kind of see the sequence and see all the important parts that we've tried to cover here. If you have any comments or questions or think we've overlooked something, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And if you like this video or any of them, we would really love it if you'd like it. And then most importantly, subscribe to our channel. You'll get updates of when we launch a new video. And hopefully we'll continue to put out some decent content for you. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you soon.